Welcome to Shop Talk Live, episode number 363. Today, I'm joined by Anissa and Bob van Dyke, and we're going to chat about a lot of stuff, primarily what it's like to be constantly introduced to new woodworking techniques and figure out how to work them into your own woodworking. We also answer a couple of listener questions, one about choosing hinges and the other about splines and why we don't talk more about splines and panel glue-ups. And last but certainly not least, Bob and Anissa introduce us to everything that's coming up at Fine Woodworking New England on May 1st and 2nd, and all of the events and exciting things that you have to look forward to if you're coming to Fine Woodworking New England. And if you're not, don't worry about it. We get it. We won't hold it against you, and you'll always have another opportunity. All right, before we get started, quick announcement though that Mike Michelli's upholstery e-learning course is live and available on the website right now. So if you've been wanting to work upholstery into your work and make upholstered furniture, be it a slip seat or a fully upholstered piece, Mike tells you everything you need to know. It's a great set of demonstrations. He upholsters a chair in two different ways, actually, and it's incredible. So head on over to finewoodworking.com/e-learning to find out more. But until then, let's get going with the episode.
Oh boy.
Next time I go up there.
I had a Zoom yesterday for the DC Woodworkers Guild, and I was making bandings. So I actually had 3 cameras set up, and the camcorder that I had there was actually the best quality. So that's what I was gonna use today, but it wasn't good enough for Ben.
You had the square over your face, and it said it had all of the graphics, the camera graphics on the side.
Well, that made me feel very important. It made me feel very official.
Bob, same thing. I asked him about using a certain mic, but it wasn't good enough for Ben. But now what I'm realizing is I thought this was going to be the podcast where Bob and Anissa bicker about getting Fine Woodworking New England all planned out. But Bob, we could actually team up, and this could be the podcast where we just harass Ben the entire time.
I think we should do that. I mean, I think that makes total sense. And I'm even set. I'm official now. You see how Ben has headphones on, and whenever Pekovic does this, he's got headphones on.
Yeah.
And I always wondered about that, and I'm disappointed that you don't have them, Anissa, because you usually do. So I got mine.
Those are earmuffs. That doesn't count.
I can't hear you. I'm sorry. What did you say?
I love that
I feel
Bob,
very, very numb in the club now.
I love that you had a prop set up for your joke. This is epic. So for the audio only audience, Bob put on some earmuffs, if that wasn't obvious by my reaction. So in keeping with the theme of the episode, people complaining about Ben, there has been people complaining that I don't introduce the guests enough. And I would like to push back on that a little bit, but I will cede some ground. And I am here with Fine Woodworking contributing editor and the director of the Connecticut Valley School of Woodworking, and just all around incredible woodworking teacher and a wealth of knowledge, Bob van Dyke.
I thought you were talking about Anissa.
I was gonna say I really built that up too high, and fan favorite co-host of Shop Talk Live, Fine Woodworking senior editor, and right?
I am a senior editor.
There
I don't think I'm fan favorite though.
No, you are. You absolutely are. Everybody loves
you old.
What?
Does that mean you're old? You're a senior editor?
Not senior in that way. Not senior in your way, Bob.
Man, we're going.
Hey.
All right, Anissa Capsalis. All right.
Be nice. I'm getting very sensitive about that these days.
You started it, though. I mean, I would never have said something like that had you not done it
but
first.
You assume that I'm smart enough to have realized that was going to come back in my face.
We should play chess.
I already have an episode title for this. I don't know if it's going to stick, but it's just Shop Talk Live 363 Shots Fired.
Hey, what the hell?
So,
No,
all right. So we are here. The three of us are here because I have to be here. But Anissa and Bob, you have been leading the charge of organizing everyone's favorite task, organizing Fine Woodworking New England. Bob, you're really to blame for this, so you can't complain.
So, I'm what?
You're to blame for Fine Woodworking New England.
Well, it all started. I mean, it's basically a spin-off of the school open house, and in 2024, Mike and we had just done the open house in the fall, and then it was like, well, let's do. And I don't know how really we were talking, and it was like, let's turn this into a fine woodworking / school open house. So it was the combination of the two. Basically, it was the open house on steroids because it was, we always did the open house, one day, and this was 2 days, and then we added some other stuff, so it became
a thing.
It became the combination of the two, and then last year it was, more Fine Woodworking New England and less Connecticut Valley Open House. And this year it's kind of more Fine Woodworking New England and even less Connecticut Valley Open House. But I still maintain it's both, because otherwise I would be doing this in the fall, which is when I do the open house. But I don't do it anymore because I do the Fine Woodworking New England instead / Connecticut Valley Open House.
Well,
Bob.
if that makes any sense. So it's been cool because we can do a lot more. I mean, making a 2-day event and doing the speaking schedule.
Yeah.
Where we used to, when we started out doing the speakers, and it was basically people who were related to the school, instructors or whatever. And then last year, I think we brought in 1 or 2 people that didn't have anything to do with the school. We had a couple speakers that had never even been here. And then this year we're more, so it's almost half and half now. People who have taught at the school, and then other people, who I didn't know them, never met them. So it's interesting because
you're expanding your horizons, Bob.
It expands the horizons a bit.
Well, the interesting thing is Fine Woodworking New England has turned into, for me, like it is just 2 days of like absolute learning and hanging out and messing with cool tools and like vintage tools and all of that stuff. But the thing that I was thinking about, so you two fit this as well, is that I wind up in my role in my job, I wind up having to pretend to be different woodworkers. And like the other day, was it yesterday or the day before? I forget. I had to pretend to be Bob van Dyke, basically. We had
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I know. It was a little. It was harder on others than me.
That's scary.
But I had to do a sponsored video, and not going to divulge the information, but it was basically doing table saw joinery, like quick video kind of things about table saw joinery, and I was using your tenoning jig, and I had to do things. I had to sit there and like think, okay, now Bob would do this next. Bob would do that next. Bob and Jeff and I are sitting there shooting this video. All of a sudden I was like, this is really tiring being a woodworker. I'm not.
This is really tiring being Bob.
Look at Look at me. I'm only 32 years old. This is what it's done.
But the thing that this made me think about is that, Bob, you teach techniques that you don't necessarily like you use, but like you have your dovetail techniques, and like the whole point of the course is that there's a million ways of doing this, right?
Yeah.
And here's all of the ones that I have seen throughout the years in teaching and running a woodworking school. And Anissa, you're the same way, where you're constantly being like shown totally different ways of doing something that is a little bit like, sometimes it's jarring. Sometimes you walk away from a shoot and you're like, oh no, do I have to go buy that thing? Because that seemed like a really good way of doing that thing, you know? And I look at Fine Woodworking New England or events like this as kind of like a little bit of an insight as to what it's like to be one of us, where you're seeing all sorts of new woodworking perspectives. And like over the course of that weekend, you might see 4 different ways of cutting a dovetail, and they're all right. And you might see 6 different ways of cutting a tenon, and they're all right. They all work. And so you can get like these quick hits of woodworking techniques and like just kind of widen your entire perception of your craft in a very short period of time. And it doesn't age you as much as it has us.
But what it does is it just it confuses you. I mean,
can, yeah.
There are so many and myself included, I mean, I teach, oh, well, this is the way, Will Neptune does it, or this is the way Phil Lowe used to do it, or, the different ways. And sometimes my head just gets like, there's too many different things and I don't remember anymore, what it is I'm doing. But it's cool because it gives you, different, I think I'll do it this way today, or I think I'll do it that way today, just because I can, just for the hell of it. But it definitely confuses students.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I saw it this way. So that what you're showing me is either no good, or what I saw earlier must be no good. No, it's all good.
Yeah.
It's all good.
I also think once you, as a beginner woodworker, that's probably more true. But once you get into it more and you start to realize like, oh, all of these different ways work. It all depends on the tools you have, what you're most comfortable with. But knowing that there are so many ways to do so many different things, I think that, and accepting that they're all good, kind of bumps you to the next level where it becomes a problem-solving skill so that you can look at things in a different way. And if you're trying to figure out something, you don't just quickly give up. You know that there has to be, and maybe this is too far of a leap from what we were talking about.
No.
There's a solution to this problem. There's probably more than one. I can work through this. I can figure out a way to do something if it's something that is specific to a project or new to that person. So I think having that background where you know that you can cut the dovetails in all these different ways and you still get really good solid dovetails kind of lays the groundwork for just overall problem solving. That makes sense?
Yeah.
Am I making any sense?
No, it's tricks in the bag. It's I am in this situation. These are the tools available to me right now. How do I put them together to get the job done?
And having all those, sorry.
No.
I think having all those different tricks and knowing that there is this entire like wealth of tricks gives you the confidence to problem solve for really specific things where you might have given up. You work through how to I don't know, make that wavy front of a wardrobe or something. I'm not making as much sense out loud as I am.
No,
in
you
my
absolutely,
head.
you absolutely
Okay.
are. Yeah.
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 No, that's very true. And it's it's important that once you realize that there are more than, one way of doing this and that they're all correct, hopefully you get out of the mindset of, oh, I always do it this way. This is the only way that I do it.
Yeah.
And I mean, we just the other day, I mean, we're talking about, if you want to talk about dovetails,
Yeah.
and the whole pins first, tails first. Oh, I always cut the tails first only, that way. And I'm like, that's fine if you usually do it that way. But there's times when, boy, doing pins first just makes it so much easier in certain situations. I was talking to Pekovich the other day, and it was like, in my opinion, in my mind, it only comes down to what is the transfer like? Are you transferring the tailboard to the pin board, or are you transferring the pin board to the tailboard? Because they both have their, if you're just doing a drawer, a 18-inch long drawer, it doesn't matter at all. It's whatever you're comfortable with, whatever you usually do. But if you're starting to do a large carcass piece, and all of a sudden the pin board is, instead of being 18 inches long, it's 4 feet long. And so now it's up here somewhere. And now you're trying to figure out how to hold the tailboard on top of that, 4 feet in the air.
And it weighs 20
also
pounds.
the tailboard, huh?
And it weighs 20 pounds now.
I was going to say, and the tailboard is, like 4 feet long.
Yeah.
And I see people coming up with these crazy, ways of holding it and working on step stools or ladders or all this stuff, when if they just took it and put the pin board, clamp the pin board, vertically on top of the tailboard could be 35 feet long. It wouldn't matter. And it's just a way, all of a sudden, it's like, if I had never seen other ways of doing it, it might not dawn on me that there is an easier way in this particular situation.
Yeah.
Regardless of what you usually do. I know how I usually do things, but you got to have that in your back pocket, that other, for those oddball times.
It's flexibility, right?
Yeah, flexibility. Yeah.
I remember
that Dovetail article I did last year, whenever it was. I mean, I started that out some sort of line that said something about, flexibility isn't necessarily a really common trait in woodworkers, but
I remember talking to Matt Wada, instructor at North Bennett Street, disciple of Phil Lowe and Will Neptune, and these woodworkers that we all cherish.
Matt's incredible.
He's just, Matt oozes woodworking education, right? And I just, he's a monster woodworker and a even better educator in my head. And I remember talking to him about pins first, tails first. And he was like, listen, there's going to come a time when you need to do pins first.
Yeah.
So you might as well learn how to do it early on, so that when you need it, it's there. And he went through the whole thing. And everybody talks about North Bennett Street teaching pins first, and he's like, because it isn't as obvious, it isn't as easy. So let's tackle that now. And it totally made sense to me. And then you're right. And I mean, you almost threw Mike under the bus, but I'm going to fully throw him under the bus. I have seen him, and we have a video that I did with him coming up with this contraption on his workbench to transfer dovetails. But that's another solution too. For him, that made more sense. And it worked. That's all that matters, right?
It just, as long as it works,
100%. And
that's, it all works. I mean, Al Breed, I cut half blind dovetails, lap dovetails with the drawer face flat on the bench. I never hold the drawer face up vertical in a vise. I never do that. And the idea of doing that, to my mind, doesn't make any sense. And I don't think in the period anyone ever did that, because one, they didn't have any fancy Lee Nielsen vices to hold it upright. And if you look on 90% of any drawer dovetail, there's an overcut on the inside of the drawer face, which makes it easier to remove the waste. But if you're holding it vertical, boy, that's really hard to do. But if you're holding it horizontal, it's easy. But where I was going with that was Al Breed cuts his tails with the board clamped flat on the bench.
And the saw backwards.
Huh?
And the saw backwards, right?
Yeah.
Doesn't he cut with the handsaw with the teeth facing away from him?
Yeah, and basically the tote sort of wrapped around, pinky kind of wrapped around the tote. And he was doing a class here a couple of years ago, and I don't know how that came up, but he showed me, and I spent the whole weekend trying to get that, and I just could not get it.
Yeah.
And I tried, on and off, and he kept coming over, and no, it's like this, and I just couldn't do it. But I got to hand it to him. I mean, it was just, okay, another thing that I have not seen that works for someone, and okay, not going to argue with it for a minute.
I think that, like, the epitome of an internet troll or whatever in woodworking for me is like the person who sees somebody do something differently than they do it and has to comment that it's invalid or whatever. And if anyone who didn't know who Al Breed was, saw Al Breed cut dovetails and didn't know let's say almost unparalleled catalog of work.
Yeah.
I mean, Al is one of the greatest woodworkers alive. And if you saw him cut dovetails that way, you would think he didn't know what he was doing.
Yeah.
And I guarantee you there's some internet person out there saying, what a hack.
Oh, that's ridiculous.
Yeah. So, but it all comes back to, well, when you see a technique that you don't, that is foreign to you, go and take a look at the work that person's doing. And if it's a really high level of work, you can assume that technique works. Now, if that technique doesn't work for you or doesn't make sense for you, that's fine. Don't do it.
Yeah. I have had the privilege, of knowing and being good friends with Bill and Will and Steve Latta and Al Breed. And these are the guys these are the people that I measure other woodworkers against. I see someone and I'm looking at what they do or what they're talking about, and I'm going, well, how would Will do that? You know, or, you know, I kind of shake my head and go, yeah, you need to learn from Phil Lowe or Al, or learn some of those techniques. Then we'll talk, you know. And I just I was lucky enough to have spent, you know, how many years working with those guys. I wish I was smart enough that it would actually have rubbed off on me more than it did, you know. But that's another podcast.
So let's real quick, let's take a look at, I don't want to turn this into a Fine Woodworking New England ad, but who all's going to be at New England? We've got Chris Bexford. He's done a thing or two. Mary May, Daryl Peart, Andy Finnegan, who incredible turner. Tom Lee Nielsen. Don't really need to say anything about Tom Lee Nielsen other than his last name.
And Mark Swanson is sharing Tom's time. Mark is the pattern maker at Lee Nielsen.
Oh.
And Mark has been there since actually 1994. And I've known Mark probably since as long as I've known Tom. So I probably met Mark 1995.
Well, I am updating the website mid-podcast, right? I'm updating the website mid-podcast. So Mark Swanson's going to be doing, so he's the pattern maker. That's awesome.
Yeah. And so, you know, and Tom asked me, you know, a couple of weeks ago, he said, you know, I'd really rather have Mark doing this talk than me. And I said, well, how about we do both of you, you know? And he was good with that. So he's going to be talking about, Todd's going to be talking a little bit about the company and that sort of thing, and then turn it over to Mark. And Mark is going to be talking about the process, the pattern making process, and getting into the casting a little bit.
That's awesome.
The whole foundry and all that good stuff. So I'm really, you know how I usually miss all of the talks?
Yeah.
Because I'm running around like an idiot. I'm going to make sure that I try and hit this one for sure.
Same.
Yeah.
And Mark will be demoing all day in the bench room too.
Yeah,
right?
well, he'll be at the bench. He always takes my bench right here where I'm sitting. So yeah. And yeah, so he'll be demoing the whole weekend.
Christina Madsen, who
I'm thrilled that Christina, we were talking about it the other day, Mike and I, and Christina, I've known her work since the 80s. And, you know, I mean, it's always kind of blown me away. And the whole carving thing and the Fiji and all this other stuff.
You can
I
had
a wonderful talk with her a couple weeks ago.
Yeah. It's just, her work is just incredible. You can spot her from a mile away.
I'm thrilled that she's
Anissa,
coming,
you did a wonderful article
that I'm finally going to meet her.
Yeah. Jennifer Anderson. What's Jen talking about, Anissa? Do you know?
Making and using a Krenov plane.
Oh, awesome.
So when you told me Jennifer Anderson, I thought you were talking about the Jennifer Anderson that I know. And Jennifer Anderson that I know is an author who wrote a very interesting book on mahogany. It was called Mahogany: The Cost of Luxury in the New World.
Oh.
And I had her as a speaker for one of the SAPA mid-years about 5 or 6 years ago. Different Jennifer Anderson.
This is Jennifer Anderson, head of Palomar College woodworking program, and Crenovian. Do we say that, Anissa? Do we call people Crenovians when they studied under James Krenov, or I don't know?
Sure, why not?
Are you a Crenovian?
I don't I think we talk about the furniture in terms of Crenovian.
Okay. All right.
Maybe.
I like that distinction. Here's another Crenovian. Brendan Gaffney, who literally wrote the book on James Krenoff. Michael Cullen, another incredible carver, woodworker, box maker, just fine woodworking favorite. Bill Pavlock, who I just emailed because I'm super cool and I get to email Bill Pavlock from Williamsburg. Let's see, Sasha Kopf. This is Silas's daughter?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes. And not apparently, and the skill and talent just passed right down to her.
Okay.
She's incredible. Yeah.
Awesome.
So she's gonna be doing marquetry.
Yeah, I'm looking forward. I know Silas, but I've not met Sasha, so I'm looking forward to that. Yeah.
I've seen her work. I haven't met her in person, so I'm looking forward to that too.
Yeah. And Joshua Clark is going to be here too.
And Kevin Rodell.
And Josh is going to be talking about, Josh's hyper kitten tools, and antique tool dealer, or a dealer in antique tools, because antique tool dealer just means that you're old. And he's not.
He's pretty young.
But he's going to be talking about tools that why would I want to be using this underappreciated tool like a Yankee push drill, or the Yankee push screwdrivers, or compass planes, or different tools that you might have seen, but why would I want to use one? And and then we started talking about clamps the other day.
Oh yeah, okay. We don't have time for that. We don't have time for that with you, Bob. I'm sorry. Kevin Rodell.
Yeah.
Who is? I haven't seen Kevin since we shot that video with him and Anissa. So I'm excited to see Kevin.
He used to teach classes here. He hasn't taught in probably about 6 or 7 years. So I'm looking forward to seeing him.
Kevin is one of the giants of the arts and crafts, of the modern arts and crafts style.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you say that, Anissa?
I would. Yeah. He also wrote the book on arts and crafts
with Benson. I mean, come on. Yeah. What else you got? And then two unknowns, Bob van Dyke and Mike Pekovich, who we don't need to talk about. But
Mary May. Did you mention Mary May?
I did. I read it off the list.
Yeah.
Did I get everyone then? Thank you for checking me, though. Thank you for checking me. I think I read that while we were trying to move along a little faster.
Oh, maybe.
But,
why would you need to move along faster?
I
somebody talking too much?
I can't imagine. And we forgot to mention Eric Curtis. Thank you, Anissa.
Yeah. How could you forget to mention Eric
YouTube Curtis? Legend, icon. He needs like a boxing name, like a woodworking boxing name. Eric Curtis. Huh. What would it be?
I have to think on that one.
Yeah. All right. Leave a comment below. Let's give Eric a really good boxing style nickname.
Yep.
The other thing, those are just the speakers. Yes. Okay. So the speakers are doing a hour and 15-minute seminar. And we have 18 of them going over the whole weekend. But the other people who are going to be here all weekend in the shop, at the bench, or some of them are going to be at a bench all weekend, some of them are going to be at a bench just for the day or whatever. But those people include, aside from the speakers, Chuck Bender, who is also one of the top furniture makers in the country, Steve Latta, Frank Straza, Mike Maselli, John Coffey, Dan Faya, Steve Brown, Matt Bickford. I think Randy Wilkinson is coming, and I think Tad Fallon is coming.
Okay.
Dave Diard, Chip Sawalski, blacksmithing.
Oh, cool.
He's the lead blacksmith at Mystic Seaport. and teaches classes here. Matt Cianci, John Rexroad is going to be here. I don't know if the first Fine Woodworking New England, JR was here, and he had his version of the Studley tool chest completely filled. It was pretty amazing. So I just got an email the other day, and he's going to be here. The Connecticut wood carvers, the Connecticut wood turners, Eric Litke from the Yale Furniture Study will be here, which we're going to be there tomorrow, by the way, at the Furniture Study. So yeah, all sorts of good stuff going on.
And so, so just come hang out with all your favorite woodworkers and Bob.
Well, that's the exciting thing. I think Owen Madden is setting up. I'm excited for this anyway. He's setting up just kind of like an informal hang at the local brewery. I think it's Illicit Brewery.
Okay.
Is that, maybe it's Manchester? Where is that, Bob?
I stopped drinking 30 years ago.
They do have food there also.
I stopped eating 30 years ago.
But every year we kind of casually all end up just hanging out in the evenings, and it's super fun. And you end up getting to talk with people that you were just quickly bypassing during the day because you're in a flurry to go here or go there. And so Owen's setting something up that's super informal, but just a little more planned. So that'll be fun too. Bob promised we would get a coffee truck this year.
And they are coming, and they'll be here from 8 a.m. until about 10:30.
All right.
And,
so let's.
And we didn't say anything about the dealers of antique tools.
Yes.
But
this is one big long ad, and if people aren't coming to Fine Woodworking New England, they've already turned us off, I think. I don't know.
Well, they should be coming. I mean,
I know, but not everyone can, Bob. Not everyone can. So I think I'm taking this dang show back.
Okay.
And it is
Can I say one thing first, please?
Okay.
It's kind of a segue into quitting. Just this whole thing is because quitting talking about the show. Sorry.
Scared.
What?
Like the whole thing takes a lot of work, and Bob really does the lion's share of it. And it wouldn't be happening if he wasn't behind the scenes being the curmudgeon that he is.
Go with your strength,
Anissa, you're a great curmudgeon too. Don't get me wrong.
Thank you.
All right, so let's answer. We've got a couple of listener questions, and one of these Bob has already emailed me a photo for, but this one is I'm reading it because it's flattering towards me. But I was re-listening some old episodes, and you mentioned using splines to register two pieces for a glue up. For the record, I was not doing a panel glue up this way. I was doing leg joinery this way. But Zachary continues, why don't we talk more about using splines for registering boards during panel glue ups? With all the domino haters out there, I'm really surprised I've not heard this idea sooner. Splines can easily be done using a variety of methods and tooling. Dowels can be frustrating with alignment and drilling. Biscuits have their own drawbacks, and the domino is expensive. Why was this only snuck into the greatest technique of all time and not a feature article? So yeah, like splines for a panel glue up. I'm going to give my reasoning for why I wouldn't do splines. And then
why
Bob,
you would not do splines?
So here's why I've never thought of doing splines for a panel glue up. And Bob, you just blew it out of the water with an email, okay? Like you're like, Ben, just get over yourself, and you flicked me in the forehead via email.
Oh, why didn't I get in on that email?
But I used the splines on like this workbench leg joint, And I just used like whatever 1/8 inch, whatever I had lying around. So I think it was just hardboard. I just ripped out thin pieces of hardboard, used those as splines just to register. It wasn't really a strength reason. It was just to get the job done quick. And I would be worried about splines on a panel glue up eventually showing up, eventually being visible on the edges. And
on the edges.
On the edges. I fear this worry because I have used biscuits on a panel glue up and then forgotten where the biscuits were and cross-cut through the biscuit, and there it was sitting right there on the edge of my panel glue up. And ever since I did that, I have been hesitant to put anything in a panel glue up, even dominoes, because I'm not smart enough to keep track of things, and I will outsmart my future or past self at some point and wreck a panel. Now, is that wrecked if the spline shows up? Bob, what's your take?
Well, the first thing is, why are you using any sort of spline or domino or biscuits or scones or any other sort of baked good thing? And the point of it, I mean, if I'm gluing two boards together, and I demonstrated this 1,000 times, you glue two boards together, and if you have a good butt joint, you break that board, you smack that board right on the joint, and the wood breaks, the glue joint doesn't break. So adding other stuff is not going to get you anything at all. Okay,
no extra strength.
Doesn't make anything stronger because it's already stronger than the joint, or the joint is already stronger. The only thing that it might do is help align things. And, so the idea of aligning, using biscuits don't align. There's too much slop in biscuits, I think. I've not use them as much. Dominoes I've used. I don't own a domino, so it's not something that I think about. But splines are something that have been used for hundreds of years. I sent Ben a picture, a cabinet maker in Greenfield, Massachusetts, late 18th century, Daniel Clay, and we did a breakfast table reproduction of one of his breakfast tables a number of years ago, and he had splines in it, and I was actually looking up. I didn't have time to find it, but he actually I want to find the picture. It's a dovetail spline, which I'm going, okay. So it's a dovetail key as a spline.
Do you think it was dovetailed the whole length of the panel or just the end?
It was the dovetail was this. So it was a pyramid shaped spline the whole length.
Huh.
I don't know if it was the whole length because I'd have to cut apart the table in half.
Were you scared?
And they'd probably object to that.
Oh, okay.
Reasonable. But so the picture that I sent Ben this morning was of the end grain on a breakfast table of Daniel Clay, and very clearly you could see the spline, and the spline was visible on the end grain, because unless you do it as a stopped cut, you're going to see it.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's the downside of it. If you're doing a spline, you're doing it let's say, the full length, then you see it on the end grain.
And
it's a registration thing.
In my head, if you have a chance of seeing it, it kind of needs to be perfect.
Yeah.
And then you're kind of defeating the purpose of using it for simplicity's sake, or for ease of the glue up. Like in my head, if there's any gap in that spline, like the depth of the grooves and the width of that spline need to perfectly match up. And then all of a sudden you're in a situation where, oh no, something's bottoming out and I can't get the joint together.
Yeah.
You know, or it didn't bottom out. The joint came together fine because I left a little bit of wiggle room, but now I see that wiggle room. So in my head, for my purposes, it feels like a self-defeating thing.
I agree. I mean, I would not do it in a place where it was visible.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. For that very reason. And like in 18th century work, joinery was not visible. I mean, you did not make, you didn't. Now everyone goes, oh, look at the dovetails, look at the dovetails. In 18th century work, it was not shown that, none of the joinery was visible. The only time you saw a dovetail was if you opened the drawer and then you could see it. But then you close the drawer, oh, it's gone. You don't see it anymore. And it's the same thing with the spline like that. Having that spline visible on the end grain all the time, most cabinet makers then and now would object to that. Mm-hmm. And I agree. I wouldn't want to see it either. So it's a way of, the corner joint, when you sent me the question, I started thinking about it, and the splined miter. Okay, so you have a frame, and the frame would be on flat, and then there would be a spline that would be going through that corner joint, reinforcing that thing and making it very strong.
Yeah.
You always got to remember on those splines which way the grain is going.
Yeah.
And the grain has to be going perpendicular to the joint. So you would never take, if you were doing a 2 foot long panel glue up, let's say, and you were going to do a spline, well, it wouldn't be a 2 foot long piece of wood that was a quarter of an inch thick. It would be a 2 foot wide piece of wood that was, let's say 3/4 of an inch long.
Now, the one that you showed is not that way. The Daniel Clay one is long grain to long grain.
I don't know that. I'd have to look at that picture closer.
You know what? I could go either way on it. So
yeah,
leave a comment below if you think it's end grain, if it's long grain to long grain.
See, the thing is, I'd have to look very closely at that picture or at the original, because if you want to maximize the strength, then, if you're going to use it for more than just alignment,
mm-hmm.
and you're going, okay, well, I want to maximize the strength. Well, then you need to have the spline, wider than it is long, going into the groove on both pieces. So typically, let's say the depth of the groove is 3/8 of an inch. So the length of the spline would be just under 3/4 of an inch, and you would do a bunch of shorter, it might be 6-inch wide pieces that you're doing, and you just put a bunch of them in there.
But like you've already said, you're already at like 110% strength. Why go to 125? So
exactly.
All right. So
but in a spline miter, to me, a spline miter makes a lot of sense.
Without a shadow of a doubt.
Yeah.
100%. Anissa, you look bemused.
I don't mean to look amused. I'm just sitting
that was
here,
purely an accident.
I'm sitting here listening to this whole thing, and I'm kind of going back to, there are two things that I'm thinking. One is we're going back to the beginning of the pod where we were talking about there are so many different ways to do things. But
and then we argue about different ways of doing things.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. So maybe that
wrong.
accounts for my amusement. But I have, for something like that, I'm totally fine with biscuits, even if they're slop. I am attentive enough that I don't think I've ever cut through them where they're showing.
Shots fired.
But even if there's a little, I would either use nothing and just make sure I'm clamping on my clamping setup is really good so that everything's level and flush. But I think even with the slop on the biscuits, it alleviates a little bit of the stress, those boards aren't going very far at all. So if they do, you can kind of make up for it later after the glue up if you need to. But, a little of both. Your clamping setup where everything's flat and even, and the biscuits, I'm okay with biscuits. So that's my 2 cents about the whole thing.
I'm not arguing with it.
It all works. It all works,
Well, we have another question, if I can find it.
The thing, one last thing, the thing that I have done using splines or biscuits is if I'm intentionally making an offset, so I don't want the two pieces to come together perfectly. I intentionally want it to come up, let's say a 1/16 of an inch because then I'm going to flush it or something like that.
Or to leave a reveal. And you want that reveal
or
to be
leaving
consistent.
a reveal. Like when we do when I make the school workbenches, okay, the main part of it is, a sandwich of MDF and particle board, and then it's wrapped with hard maple. And when we do that, we actually use biscuits, and we make it so that the hard maple is, a 1/16 of an inch proud, and then it all gets flush trimmed down. So,
because it's easier to flush trim the edge down than to flush trim the MDF down.
It's a bear. You need a big honking flush trim bit.
That's a lot of sharpening your number 4.
Exactly.
All right. So, Tim, a listener from Germany, has a hinge question that Anissa's just can't wait to get. I'm in the middle of building an ash tabletop and cabinet for a height adjustable table base. I need to decide what hinges to use. And these are on the cabinet doors, I assume. I'm going between normal butt hinges and sauce hinges. I don't know if I want the visual accent from a hinge or just make it invisible. Sadly, I can't find any detailed information on sauce hinges on your website. And we don't really have much, actually. What are the pros and cons? Why are they almost never seen in fine furniture, or did I miss them? Well, they're hidden, so that's why you didn't see them. Besides the visual aspect, the only thing I can think of is the minimum thickness of the cabinet door. Are there any downsides? Do they tend to last equally as long? I would appreciate some insight. So.
Oh. I mean, I saw the sketch, and I think aesthetically, the design of that sketch lends itself probably to having invisible hinges because it's a very sleek, modern design.
Mm-hmm.
as
So
far as
invisible hinges is a modern thing to you, you're saying?
invisible hinges, no, not necessarily. So if he's talking about just using regular butt hinges, you're going to see those on that specific design. It was just a SketchUp, right?
Yeah.
It seemed to have very clean, sleek lines. There was no adornment whatsoever. And so I think the invisible hinges would work well on something like that. I mean, I think I don't have a lot of experience with this specific type of hinge.
Mm-hmm.
To me, it lends itself more to like kitchen cabinetry, I guess. But I don't really know enough about them. But I can say on the design that I saw, I would think not having the hinge reveal or the hinge visible would be the better option.
Mm-hmm.
But I can't really speak to the durability or the function of those specific hinges. Maybe that's an article for Owen.
I was just going to say, yeah.
He's got so much experience with that type of hardware. Yeah.
Bob, do you have thoughts on hinge visibility and sauces?
Yeah, I mean, well, if you're going for hinges, you want to not see any hinge. Then there's, sauce hinge is an option, or the, like the 32 millimeter hinge, the Bloom hinges, and all of those spin-offs. I mean, that's in industry. I mean, that's what's used, and they have machines that just pop those holes in and put them in.
That's
if you're looking
point.
And there you have a lot of adjustability. The downside of those is that, and I'm sure someone from Bloom or some of the other manufacturers are going to argue this completely, but I don't think they're going to have the longevity that a good quality butt hinge is going to have. I mean, I've seen many, many, many butt hinges, 18th century butt hinges that are still working just fine.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen lots of kitchen hinges that 12 years later, they're not working quite so well. So, in terms of the sauce hinges, you don't see them very often. And I think they were, when I first started in the 80s, I think I saw them more than I do now. And, lots of stuff that, it's all cycles,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, sauce hinges have been around for a lot longer than the 80s. I know Will Neptune told me, years ago, his mentor, Mr. Fullerton at North Bennett Street, was actually the foreman at, I believe it was Haynes Furniture in Boston, which was one of the top furniture making companies in Boston. And they were making, and they employed mostly European trained cabinet makers. And at one point, it came down that from the top that all of the card tables that they were making, which uses a specific card table hinge, which is a little bit tricky to set and all, but it's obviously the hinge because that's what's been used for over 250 years. And it came down from the top that, we're not going to use sauce hinges anymore, or card table hinges anymore. We're going to use sauce hinges. And every cabinet maker in the place was like, yeah, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not going to do that. And Will told me, I said, yeah, for a while, Mr. Fullerton was actually staying late at night after everyone had left and putting the stupid hinges in so that they could continue on. And all the cabinet makers were up in arms about it. You know,
So if you've
I don't
ever
know.
tried to install sauce hinges without like the template, they're a bear. I mean, they're a bear.
I think I've only tried to do it once, and it wasn't it was just a drill press.
Like true sauce hinges, there's an absolute width to them, and it's not just a drilled hole. There's a multi-level mortise required, and they need to be like spot on. There is no adjustability, so that is something to keep in mind. What is that, Tim? There's no adjustability, so you got to nail the installation. You need to use a template. Sauce sells a template. I 3D print templates, and I can 3D print a template and they'll be spot on. And in an upcoming Fine Woodworking article, I show it. But it is not something for, just make a mark and use a gouge to do the round and all of that. It is definitely a template, a purchased or printed template task. The other thing that I would keep in mind, Tim, is that you cannot really have much of a reveal on the door. That door needs to be, for all intents and purposes, flush to the front of the cabinet it is onto, because there's only 1/8 of an inch of travel that hinge gives you when going around like the full. If it was opening up a full 180, it would bottom out on the front of the cabinet if you didn't have it front, or if you didn't have it flush with the front of it. So that's another consideration. I think, Bob, you're right. I think regular old Bloom invisible kitchen hinges, yeah, they might not last forever, but they are everywhere, and there's going to be replacements available for as long as anyone cares to have the desk, probably. I'd be
The other option that might be appropriate, I've never personally used them, but then like Anissa said, I'm kind of a curmudgeon. And I'll go with that. My father always said, go with your strengths. So I'm going to be the best curmudgeon that I can possibly be.
You got it, Bob.
But knife hinges,
I was just going to say
knife hinges would be appropriate to that design, to that look. And they are quite nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Knife hinges, sauce hinges would work. Bloom hinges, kitchen cabinet hinges would work. But also, I'm gonna just like a nice high quality butt hinge. Nobody's gonna notice it. Nobody's gonna say like, "Oh, that's a beautiful desk. Oh, if only it wasn't for the hinges showing just a little bit."
Yeah.
I think you might be overthinking it, Tim. Which, as someone who has a tendency to overthink things, I get it. So,
well, the other thing that people don't realize, a lot of people don't realize, is that good quality hinges, let's say you're buying from Whitechapel or something like that, there are half a dozen different finishes that you can get. Everything from high gloss polish to dark antique and everything in between. So a light antique almost blends in.
I like it.
Yeah.
A lot of good options. Well, we will see everyone, absolutely everyone listening to this podcast. We will see you at Fine Woodworking New England, May 1st and 2nd, right?
May 1st and 2nd. Yeah, and just because you are, from Ohio or Nevada or Canada or something doesn't mean anything, because the last couple of years we have had people coming from Canada, California, Seattle. I remember a guy came from Seattle. And
Have you covered travel costs, Bob?
I'm 45 minutes away. That's too far to go.
Nah.
Like, are you really that lazy?
It's not
Yep.
lazy, Bob. Come on.
As it turns
Travel
out,
costs are a real consideration. Time is a real consideration.
oh, don't be
Leaning
crazy.
into the curmudgeon right at the end.
You can, but look at all the antique tools that you can buy.
Yeah. It's
know?
basically an investment.
Well, think of how much money you're going to save
Totally.
on those antique tools, and then that pays for a plane ticket.
You won't have to pay for shipping.
Exactly.
I mean, come on.
Or tax.
Shh.
Don't say anything about that. Yeah, that's right.
All right. Well, Bob, thank you for joining us and sharing your wealth of information and curmudgeonness. And
thank you.
It's always a pleasure. We will see you in May. And
What's happening? Did he just freeze?
No.
No,
Is everyone back?
I'm here. I'm just overwhelmed.
All right.
I have Mike Maselli and John Coffey.
Oh, you think you're overwhelmed now?
Yeah, right.
I am so deep in the weeds with stuff that I have to do.
All right. Well, we'll let you go. Well, that about does it for this episode of Shop Talk Live. Thank you so much for listening, for being a part of Fine Woodworking and Shop Talk. But to be more of a part of Shop Talk, please send in your questions to shoptalk@finewoodworking.com. If you have questions or conversation starters, the show is guided by you, y'all. It is yours for the taking. So send in questions or anything you want us to be talking about, bring it on. We're in for it. Give us a thumbs up on YouTube, and a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts is the tops. All right. We'll be back in 2 weeks with another episode. Thanks for listening.